All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Remember, in about 3 hours, I'm sorry, 2 hours from now, the president will be meeting with congressional leaders at the White House. We'll talk to Susan Ferrecchio, chief congressional correspondent at the Washington Examiner, in a little while. We'll get the latest on that, and we'll keep you up to date. Joining us now, though, is Martin Lee, who is the author of several books. His latest is Smoke Signals, and we have him on because it's a great topic to debate. And the debate focus, we have him on because it's a great topic to debate. And the debate focuses at reports on, I call it marijuana, they call it cannabis. But anyway, the science of it, the therapeutics of it. And he was I should say Martin, who's in studio with me, welcome, is the founder, was the founder of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting, which I would describe as a left-wing group, but it's good that we could both be here talking about a topic that we probably disagree on. I think it's an accurate description, although I'm the co-founder, not the sole founder. Okay, co-founder. All right. Well, see, I was going to give you all the credit, but you didn't want it. All right, so marijuana. Now, first of all, CBD is cannabis something? It actually stands for cannabidiol. It's one of many components of the marijuana plant, and interestingly, it's a component that is not psychoactive. It doesn't make people feel high. Doesn't make people feel stoned, and it has tremendous medicinal attributes. All right, so you're telling me, okay, because this is educational to me, that there's a part of the marijuana plant that could be separated and just used for medicinal purposes and would not have any of the effects of, like you just described, getting high or stoned or anything of that nature? Yes, it could be. That's what pharmaceutical companies are looking at. But actually what the scientists are finding is that when combined with THC, the high causer, tetrahydrocannabinol, it actually potentiates CBD and vice versa, so that when combined together, they even have stronger medicinal properties, particularly with respect to shrinking tumors they're finding. These components have many other things. All right, so in your book, I mean, first of all, the debate that's going on now, you know, I like to separate the medicinal debate from the libertarian war on drugs is no good, and let's legalize pot, and let's tax it, and the government can make money, and blah, blah, blah. Where do you stand on that? I mean, do you draw a distinction between the medicinal use and the call for legalization for general use? Well, in terms of the medicinal aspect, which I'm most interested in, because I do think it has significant therapeutic aspects to it, you can't really fully realize the therapeutic potential of marijuana if it's still illegal, if it's still legal for recreational use, because a lot of people through recreational use have discovered therapeutic value in it. So really, I see the two issues together, although, you know, it's interesting because there's a lot of tension within the medical marijuana industry and the broader legalization movement. They don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything. Okay, well, if it became, let's say it was widely legalized, right now it's legalized for medicinal use in various states, but not in others, but let's say it was widely legalized and accepted, wouldn't it be an option, just as a doctor could prescribe if other treatment wasn't working, or they might say, would you like to try the marijuana? Why would someone have to use it illegally to try it on their own if it were legalized for medicinal purposes? Well, it is in 20 states now legal for medicinal purposes, but many other places it's not. And sometimes people generally the first encounter one has with marijuana, for most people, is going to be in an illegal recreational context. And then they might discover, hey, this is good for pain or whatever it might be. But I think they're more apt to discover it's good to get high. But then again, you know, there's a fine line between getting high and feeling better in that way and feeling better in other ways. So I would say there's a rather murky line separating recreational and medicinal use. All right. But then, you know, so there have been studies that have been done that call marijuana a gateway drug. You know, growing up, I got to say, I honestly never put a joint to my lips, never tried drugs. I guess I'm too much of a hypochondriac to have ever tried that. But I know people who, you know, went for marijuana and then go to the next step. So what do you say to people who say that this is, you know, this is a gateway drug, and why provide that legal ability or option for people to get started? Well, the gateway theory, as it's called, the idea that marijuana is a stepping stone to harder drugs, has been pretty much debunked by several government commissions in the United States and other countries. The National Academy of Science, the last report put out in the early 80s, debunked that idea. And what they found, when they did surveys of inner cities in the United States, 35 different cities, they found that when marijuana was more available, hard drug use was less
evident, and that when marijuana use was marijuana was less available, hard drug use was more. And that's just the opposite of what the gateway idea
Well,
would
I mean,
suggest.
it depends if the person started on marijuana first and then couldn't get any more and then opted for the next one, or do people turn to, I mean, I can't imagine anybody who wants to get marijuana not being able to find marijuana, and they'd be more comfortable with it, and it'd be easier than finding cocaine or heroin or LSD or any of those things. So I don't understand the logic of that. But I mean, there were reports that I don't have in front of me that say the opposite. But there's also scientific evidence, and I know people. You could tell people who if you talk to them enough and you hang out with them enough, or you work with them, or not here, but you could tell that they've done a lot of pot in their life. It has an effect on the brain, according to many studies, and long-term effect. And it's just something that you wouldn't want again. I wouldn't want my kid to have the option at 18 to go to the store and buy marijuana.
Well, most people, when they try marijuana, it doesn't become a big thing in their lives. Some try it. A lot of people don't like it, actually. They find that it's more dysphoric than euphoric. But those that do might use it occasionally or casually from then on. And there's a very small percentage who become obsessive users, morning, noon, and night, both teenagers and adults.
But you don't have to be obsessive to have it having a long-term effect on your brain. Why legalize it? Forget the medicinal. Let's separate the medicinal. I mean, if it helps people medicinally and they're really sick and then going chemo or whatever, then I'm all for it. If it helps relieve their pain, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are other things that could relieve their pain. But medicinal aside, why on earth would you legalize marijuana?
Well, just for starters, about the idea of marijuana hurting the brain, there is no scientific consensus for that at all.
We could argue that back and forth, yeah.
The overwhelming consensus among the scientists, not the political people in Washington, is that compounds in marijuana have a neuroprotective effect that actually protect the brain, including protecting the brain against alcohol poisoning. Interesting.
Okay, so you never run into a case where you could tell someone has been doing pot most of their life. You can't tell a difference. You can't tell see a little space out about them. You can't. If you were presented with two people, and you would have no idea which one was the pot user.
Maybe. Barack Obama was a big pot user as a teenager.
That's true.
Whether you like his policies or not, it doesn't seem to have affected his ability to succeed in life. But that's one example. Yeah. The point is that, people might be a little bit spaced out, a few loose screws for many reasons. And they might have something wrong with them that compels them to use marijuana a lot. And that the spaciness, that kind of the stone freaky feeling you get from somebody, as you're describing, might not be from the marijuana so much, but from whatever it is that's driving them to use it compulsively.
We're talking to Martin Lee, author of Smoke Signals, director of Project CBD, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. All right, so let's, again, with all due respect, so you're telling me that if someone appears to be spaced out of marijuana and they use marijuana, they may be spaced out appearing because of the thing that drives them to use it, and they use marijuana, they may be spaced out appearing because of the thing that drives them to use the drug, or that it damages the brain. Again, I take issue with all of that. But what's your argument for? Are you also in favor of legalizing cocaine, legalizing heroin, legalizing all these drugs?
Well, I suppose one can make an argument for that, but I've studied cannabis, marijuana as a historian, and that's what I'd prefer to focus on. I mean, I think certainly marijuana should be made legal.
Why?
Because it should never have been illegal in the first place.
But it's a substance. It's a you're also, if I think I remember before, you're not saying no. You separated them. It's a mind-altering substance.
Mm-hmm. Many things are.
Yeah, but why would you want to legalize another one? We have 50,000 deaths a year on the highway because of alcohol. So why would you want to say, hey, here's another thing that you could take and smoke, and it might be against the law, but go ahead, go get high, and maybe we'll have 30,000 more deaths from people who don't drink but do pot or will do pot. Why would you?
But you don't have that for marijuana. You do from alcohol. There's no question. There's a lot of violence.
And why don't you have it for marijuana?
Because it's a much safer substance.
So somebody high on marijuana could drive?
Yes, many do.
I'm afraid many do.
And what they found in states that have legalized marijuana for medical purposes, there was a recent study, it was published just a few months ago, showed that in those states, traffic accidents go down because there's less drunk driving, because the more people smoke marijuana, the less they use alcohol.
So you're saying people who use marijuana for medicinal purposes, maybe for chemo or something else, were taking alcohol first, and now they switched to marijuana? Why would they have been taking alcohol to help them for medicinal purposes?
No, just in general. They found that in states where it's legal for medicinal purposes, and a lot of people use it recreationally under the pretext of medicine.
I don't know who does these studies, and it matters who does the studies, who pays for the studies, and I don't have these studies in front of me, and I'm sure you could cite them, but it wouldn't mean anything to me because I don't know how to, I have to look into the organizations involved. But common sense would dictate. What do you say to the common sense argument that we don't need more drugs, we don't need more people high, we don't need more people walking around high, we don't need more people who might, hey, we know that crack cocaine, for instance, at least in this city, at least before Giuliani, was a major driver of crime because people would get addicted and they'd have to have a fix and they had no money, so they went and they robbed people. What about teenagers or 18 or 19 unemployed? We have a huge unemployment problem in this country who would go into the drugstore or wherever, buy some pot, like it, and want more, and they don't have any money. So they'll go rob somebody.
See, the fact of the matter is there's millions of people that smoke marijuana or otherwise use it in this country already, whether it's legal or not. So whatever problems there would be as a result of using marijuana, we'd already see them.
So there's not going to be any increase in marijuana smokers?
Actually, I think if marijuana is legalized across the board, there'd probably be not too much increase in recreational use because most people in America who want to smoke marijuana are already doing it. They're not waiting on the edge of their seats to become legal. Where you'll see a change is in the medicinal use, because when people learn that there's kinds of marijuana out there now that don't get you high or that are very little psychoactivity because of this CBD, the cannabidiol, when it's in the product or strains, and it has such tremendous medical properties, that will bring a lot of new people into the marijuana scene, as it were, who otherwise would not be at all interested in going in a dispensary with a Bob Marley poster.
But when you legalize it, there's going to be advertising for it, unless it's banned like cigarettes. But I would doubt that they would legalize it for non-medicinal purposes, recreational purposes, and then say it's bad like tobacco, so you're not going to advertise for it. So I'm sure there'll be commercials. Like I said, teenagers will see those commercials, and then when they become of age, they'll go buy it, they'll try it. They've been hearing about it. It's like breakfast cereal. It's like anything else. Plus, maybe some of them have done it on the sly, growing up as teenagers illegally, and now they're going to be able to go buy it. You don't think that's going to increase tenfold the amount of pot users in this country?
Teenagers are already buying it. The average age for an American teenager to try marijuana for the first time is 14 years
But that's
and 10
a horrific
months.
Thing. That's not a good thing.
That's just a fact.
But it's a bad thing.
It's neither good or bad.
Sure, it's bad. Wait. How can it not be bad? Bad. How?
Well,
it's illegal. It's mind-altering for teenagers. It disrupts their studies. It leads to other drugs. It leads to mischief. How can it be a good thing?
You're painting with a very broad brush here.
So you think 14-year-olds should be doing pot?
No, I didn't say that. I said
that it's bad if they do.
That they are doing it. All I'm saying is
isn't
fact.
that bad?
And if the law changes, it won't affect one way or another.
Sure, it will.
If the law stays the same, people will still do it when they're young.
Is it bad for 14-year-olds to do marijuana if they're doing it now?
There's much healthier and better ways to deal with stress. Marijuana is a stress-reducing agent, and I would say that if you're a teenager or if you're a parent of a teenager who is an obsessive marijuana smoker...
No, forget obsessive. If you're a parent of a teenager and if I caught my kid with pot or any drug, that would be the end. I would take his cell phone, I would ground him, I would punish him. He would never touch it again while he's living in my house. I could assure you of that. You think that's a bad idea?
I don't know what happens when he's out of your house, though. Well, I'm not going to tell you how you should parent your child.
What do you think? I'm asking you.
I think I would much prefer that a person or a young person older be smoking marijuana than drinking or doing something that's known to be toxic to the brain and nervous system.
Well, is marijuana known to be toxic. I don't see how you can sit here and say, so there are no ill effects from long-term of smoking marijuana.
I didn't say that.
Well,
I said that there is no scientific consensus that shows marijuana damages the brain in any way, shape, or form. Alcohol damages the brain. Chemotherapy damages the brain. You can measure the brain. You can do tests on animals. You can expose them to these. There has never been studies that actually demonstrate physical harm to the brain.
I don't believe that at all. I've seen many studies. Like I said, I don't have them in front of me. I think it's common sense that if you take a mind-altering drug and you get addicted to it or you use it frequently over many years or maybe even less years, you're gonna suffer consequences like anything you do.
We have marijuana-like compounds in our brains and bodies that are happening 24/7 all the time. They're very, very similar to marijuana compounds, and they do very, very important things in terms of regulating many different physiological processes.
What do you mean marijuana-like compounds?
Yes, we have marijuana compounds are called cannabinoids. THC, the high causer, CBD, the non-psycho, and many others. It just exist in that plant alone. Cannabinoids. They exist in the plant kingdom just in
Which you
marijuana.
said don't get you high.
But there are also cannabinoids, endocannabinoids, cannabinoids that exist within our own body, and they play a crucial role in how we function every day, what our mood is. And then there's cannabinoids that scientists make up in laboratories, and they use it to study how the brain works. This is a very important study that scientists, it's a very important discovery.
Give me one positive to legalizing marijuana for non-medicinal purposes.
Okay, well, let's compare the studies.
No, one positive. No
Okay.
studies, one positive. You tell me.
Here's the positive. When you look at a group of marijuana smokers and non-marijuana smokers, as sociologists and scientists have, and you compare them, they find marijuana smokers have less incidence of Alzheimer's, less incidence of diabetes, less incidence of metabolic syndrome,
so
use less painkillers,
okay, so
and have less alcohol.
So you're saying marijuana is a good thing. Marijuana will help people. Marijuana, not medicinally, but long-term medically. Marijuana is good for you medically. Marijuana is good for your psyche. Marijuana is good for your habits. Marijuana is good for you. That's why it should be legalized. That's what you're saying.
It might be good for some people, not for others. No, I'm not saying that.
You just did. You just said you won't get addicted to alcohol. You won't have Alzheimer's. You won't have. You just said it.
No, I said when you compared the two groups, I didn't say that anyone who smokes marijuana won't have Alzheimer's or won't have diabetes.
And you attribute the differential in the two groups you just mentioned to pot smoking. There's no other explanation.
There may be other factors, but it's quite significant. These studies show this.
All right,
for example, the THC that either a kid smokes when they bring it or an adult, it has been shown at the Scripps Research Institute in San Diego, very respectable, very important medical science research institute, that the THC suppresses an enzyme in the brain that's involved in the formation of beta amyloid plaque. That's the hallmark of Alzheimer's. This is proven science. Okay. There is no
so is global warming, supposedly. Only the temperature hasn't risen in 15 years.
It's pretty hot today, though.
It's pretty hot today, and we'll end it on that happy note because I'm glad that it's hot out there today. All right, I just got to say, it's my son's 14th birthday. If I ever saw him with pot, he would regret it for the rest of his life, and I think most parents feel that way. And I think saying that a 14-year-old could smoke pot because it's better than alternatives is kind of nuts. But I'm glad you came up. And the book, folks, is Smoke Signals by Martin A. Lee. No relation to Robert E. Lee, I presume.
Who was a big enthusiastic supporter of hashish as a medicine, by the way.
Of course, everybody was.
I'll show you the document.
Robert E. Lee liked pot, folks. What a way to end it.
So did Ulysses S. Grant.
And who's buried in Grant's tomb? And what's in there with him?
What we hope it's Grant.
A lot of paraphernalia?
Who knows?
All right. Martin, thanks for coming up. All right, folks. All right, folks, we're coming back. Steve Malzberg right here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Newsmax, do you want to weigh in? 855-777-9660. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.